Hi, this is Dr. Tiffany Lamont with Lamont Wellness, and today I'm going to be making oatmeal, but I'm going to give you two different versions. One is a version that you can make at home, and in my opinion is the best way to have oatmeal because I actually don't really like oatmeal that much. And then the second one is a backpacking version. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to separate the oats into two containers because I'm going to make one that I'm going to use for breakfast, and I'm going to make one that I'm going to use for backpacking. So for my family meal, I'm going to make a double batch, and for my backpacking meal, I'm going to make a single batch. So for my backpacking meal, I'm going to measure it and weigh it so that for those of you who are gram counters, you'll have an idea of what a single serving of this breakfast looks like in terms of weight. So I'm going to do 1 cup. And I don't like quick cook oats. I prefer old-fashioned oats. A lot of people in their backpacking meals use quick cook oats, but I like my oats a little bit chewier, so I keep using the old-fashioned oats. For those of you who have gluten sensitivity, you might consider using certified gluten-free oats like Bob's Red Mill, because oats are often cross-contaminated. However, oats themselves are not a glutinous grain. It's just that they're often manufactured in facilities that have gluten contamination from other grains. So in this bowl, I'm just putting the cup of oats for my family's meal. I'm actually just cooking for 2 of us. And in this bowl, it's a half a cup of oats instead of a cup of oats, and this is for my backpacking meal. So in my day-to-day meal, I use a whole, very ripe banana, like the kind of banana you might use in banana bread. And I mash it up, and that is gonna go in with the oatmeal. So I'll show you how I do that now. The banana actually looked pretty rough on the outside, but it's still in pretty good shape. So I take a fork and just mash it. And I don't get too carried away. You know, not too perfect. And that's about as good as I do it. Okay, now I'm going to add either a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon or a 1/4 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice to either one of these. Today, I think I'm gonna go with the pumpkin pie spice in my family's meal. And in this one, I'm actually gonna use more like 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't measure very often. And then put that one in the backpacking meal. Now I'm gonna add the other dry ingredients to my backpacking meal, but in my regular oatmeal, I'm going to save the dry ingredients to put on top at the end. So I'm gonna take a 1/2 teaspoon for my backpacking meal, and I'm gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of each of these ingredients. This is flax meal, so 1/2 teaspoon of flax meal. A 1/2 teaspoon of hemp seeds. A 1/2 teaspoon of chia seeds. And now what I'm doing by adding these, I'm adding some really healthy fats, some fiber, some micronutrients and minerals that I wouldn't otherwise get from the oatmeal. And when you're backpacking or just in life, you want to try and get as many healthy nutrients as possible. And I said this before in other videos, I really feel like micronutrients are a neglected substance. People like to talk about macronutrients a lot, but your micronutrients are really important for cellular function and building healthy cells. So then the other thing that I like to add sometimes is you can choose any nuts or other seeds that you like. Sometimes I use cashews, you could use peanuts, you can use almonds. Today I happen to have sunflower seeds, so I'm going to do another 1/2 teaspoon, like a little heaping 1/2 teaspoon of those. If you want more, add more. These are all just general guidelines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a full teaspoon of the following ingredients. So I'm going to add a full teaspoon of peanut butter powder. This adds a little bit of protein. Now, sometimes people don't, if you don't like the flavor of peanut butter, then don't add it. Now, you have a choice here. I like a little bit, you could make this like a coconut or a cocoa based, and you could use either cocoa powder or chocolate chips. Now with chocolate chips, it's going to melt and it's going to get messy. So for this, I'm going to use cocoa powder. Again, I'm going to use about 1 teaspoon of that. And I'm going to also use a teaspoon of coconut sugar. I'm contaminating all my ingredients by just dipping my spoon in, aren't I? Now you can adjust that to taste. You can make it sweeter or less sweet depending on your preference. I don't put any sugar in the day-to-day one because the banana adds so much sweetness. Another thing I like to do, and I don't know why I do this other than Brazil nuts have a full day's worth of vitamin E. So I will usually put a Brazil nut on top of the one I'm making for my family, or you could chop it up and put it in this, or you could just take a whole nut and throw it into your backpacking meal. It's totally up to you. It's a little bit of a weird way to do it. So the next thing that I'm going to add is a 1/4 cup of freeze-dried fruits. Now today I have mango, apples, and strawberries. I really, in this meal, like raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries, but this is what I have on hand. And since this is sort of like a cinnamon spicy type meal, I think that in this particular one, the apples would be particularly good. So I'm going to pull out about a 1/4 cup of apples. Now these are kind of a funny shape, so I'm going to break them into little pieces. Sure, that's close enough to be a 1/4 cup. So I'm just going to break it into little pieces and put it in. And these are going to rehydrate and reconstitute when I add the water. So this particular breakfast, I'm going to add 2/3 cup boiling water. So what I'm going to show you is I like to use a jet boil, and part of the reason why I like to use a jet boil is because I like to make my own backpacking meals. But even in the pre-made backpacking meals, it usually requires a certain measurement of water. And on the bottom of the jet boils is a measuring cup. Now, a lot of the other pots, they have graded measurements, so you could use those as well, but a little crumb in there. But another thing I'm going to do at the end is I'm going to show you a measurement of how much this is compared to the 2/3 cups of water. If I remember correctly, this comes out to about a cup. Let's see if I can do this without making a mess. All right, I'm not so very optimistic that I'm going to do this without making a mess. Okay, so as you can see, that comes out to pretty close to a cup. So I'm going to take this cup, this is approximately 1 cup of ingredients, and I'm going to measure the weight of it. So this comes out to 2.9 ounces, or in grams, 81 grams. And then you would add 2/3 cups boiling water. So the next thing I wanted to show you that I like to do for backpacking oatmeal is you have a couple of options. You can make it right in your jet boil or your cook pot. This jet boil you can cook in. Some jet boils you can only boil water. A lot of people don't like to cook in their pot because it makes a mess and they don't like cleaning it. So another option, or if you're with 2 people and you're using one cook system, is you can do something like this. So you can use a stasher bag. You put the amount in it you want, the boiling water. This is food grade silicone, and so you can cook in this, and then all the ingredients can go, if you want to. This is very light. This is something I actually bought on Etsy. I'll put some links to these things below, and I'll also put in the description box the recipe. But if you put it in here, once it's all full, and then seal it, this actually helps it reconstitute and stay warm longer. And it's very, very light. This is a cool feature. So when I go on a backpacking trip with 2 people, we usually bring one cook system, and one of us will use this to help reconstitute our meals, and one person will eat out of the pot, or they will have a separate bowl, or they'll have their own version of this, and we just use the cook system to boil the water. Also, it depends on who I'm with. They might use a backpacking meal, and I might have my own meal, and we just boil the amount of water we need separately, but we only have to carry one cook system. Another option is, if you decide not to do that, is you can put them in individual serving Ziploc bags. Some people are trying to reduce their plastic waste. And another option is, let's say you end up loving this and you decide, I'm going to eat this for 6 days in a row. You could get a larger bag, multiply the recipe by 6, put it in here, and divvy out 1 cup at a time per meal into your cook system. That's another way to do that. Also, this recipe can be modified, and you can change it up to have different flavors. So let's say maybe you didn't want to put the cocoa powder and the peanut powder in it, but you wanted to add more, more strawberries and blueberries. That would be more fruity based. Maybe you want to do one that's more tropical, so you could have some dried mango and some dried pineapple, and that would be really good with like just a little bit of ginger powder, not a lot, just a little bit of ginger powder, and that would be a more tropical flavor. You could put some shredded coconut in that as well, and that'd be delicious too. So there's lots of ways to modify this meal. Another good ingredient that you can carry with a backpacking meal or just backpacking in general is small packets of either coconut oil or olive oil. Now in this case, coconut oil would be much better in terms of flavor profile. Olive oil probably wouldn't be great. You could I've never seen packets of avocado oil or grapeseed oil. Those are much less flavorful, but coconut oil packets come from Trader Joe's like this. And I would hope I was eating with 2 people because this is a lot of oil for one meal. However, one of your biggest concerns when you're backpacking is trying to get enough calories and enough fat. And fat is really hard to get because almost everything is dehydrated. So these are really great sources of fat. And what you do is you just throw it in when you put in the boiling water and mix it in, and you get some oil in it as well. Okay, so now for my family's breakfast, I'm going to turn this on to high. I'm going to add 1 cup of water, so 1 cup of oats, 1 cup of water, and I'm going to put in just a little bit of coconut oil. Maybe like half a teaspoon of coconut oil. Helps if you turn on the right burner. Okay, once your water is to a boil, I actually, once it's a pretty rapid boil, just turn the heat off, add the oats and the cinnamon or the pumpkin powder and the banana all at the same time. Give it a mix and just wait a second. Now, depending on how chewy or how soft you like your oats, because right now it's still boiling from the heat of the burner, you can either cook it longer or not, but I like it this way because it's going to come out a little bit of a chewier texture. My personal preference is, I'm talking like 30 seconds before I start to serve this. Now, some people like to cook it for 3 minutes or something like that. I prefer real quick. Now I'm going to separate this into the 2 bowls. And I love how the banana imparts a really nice sweetness, but it's, in my opinion, not too sweet. You could use more banana, less banana. You could add sugar if you wanted to, or honey is another option, or maple syrup. But I find that that makes it too sweet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I add all the fun ingredients to this. Now, adjust this to your appetite and your taste. Like for some people, this is 1 meal. For some people, they're going to eat this entire 1 cup by themselves. For small children, you might even create 4 small meals out of this. Okay, now I'm going to make my oatmeal here beautiful. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to use my hands. I'm going to dip them right in the jar. I'm going to take a little bit of chia seeds, and I'm going to sprinkle those on top. You might not do this in your own home where you just use your fingers, but since this is my house, I can do what I want. A little bit of hemp seeds. A little bit of flax meal. I'm not measuring any of this, but I would say if you really want to measure it, you could use similar measurements to the ones that I use for the backpacking meal. On this one, I'm not going to use any cocoa powder or chocolate chips or peanut butter because I'm going to use a berry topping. I think some nuts would be nice, so I'm going to use a little bit of sunflower seeds, but in this case, I do think there's probably some better options, like almonds might be really nice in this case, or even if I chopped up my Brazil nut, I'm still going to throw my Brazil nut in the corner. Boop, boop. 1 for each of us, vitamin E for the day. And then the last thing is I have this berry mixture that I defrosted, and this one has blueberries, strawberries, cherries. I think that's it, but I really also like I said, I like blackberries. I really like raspberries a lot. I honestly think raspberries might be my most favorite fruit, but this is delicious, and I like to put it on the side. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's a presentation thing, and my husband likes to mix it all together, whereas I like to take a little bite of oatmeal and then a little piece of fruit to go with it. So this way we can each have it the way we want it. And this one has a little bit of the juice, which is also sweeten it. If you decided that's something you liked, you could add more, but this one doesn't. And so here we have our 2 meals and our backpacking meals for our breakfast. So as always, on this channel, everything that has to do with health and wellness is fair game. And so I hope you find this as a way to really add a little bit of extra nutrients and interest to what would otherwise be a very simple meal. And also this can be a very budget-friendly meal, depending on the ingredients that you use. Additionally, when you're backpacking, sometimes oatmeal from a packet is pretty boring, and personally I don't care for it, and I find them to be really, really sweet. So this is a nice version with a little bit of extra nutrients, a little bit of extra interest, and even less cost.